Today is cloudy with sunny periods, and the high in Central Park is 12, that's 55 Fahrenheit. It's a really nice, mild winter's day after all the cold weather, and I for one are gonna get out into the sunshine. Otherwise, traffic's moving pretty freely in this morning. It's 8:33, 10 degrees, and a nice mild day to start the week. And here, to start the week...
Hey, welcome back to the show, Black Sheep, Bad Apples, yeah! I'm Loren, this is obviously the show. Tonight we've got a kind of a special newsy episode that we don't normally do. But before we get to that, I want to introduce the guys here in the studio. We got Mr. Shawn, producer, host, man, and Mr. Sam.
As we lovingly refer to him, our Dr. Dre.
Or Dr. Dre. Yeah. Who recently had an aneurysm.
I forgot about Dre.
Yeah, and our special guest tonight
Don't forget about Dre.
is as you heard, Mr. Matt Wallace. How you doing,
Hello,
baby?
I'm doing pretty all right.
Welcome back, baby.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
Yeah, it has been. I hear you've been kind of busy doing shit over the holidays.
Trying to. I mean, you know, with all the quarantines and shutdowns, you got to try to find something to do. And luckily, there's been some people around playing some music and trying to stay writing some songs, getting in the studio and recording an album.
Yeah. So that's pretty exciting. And speaking of exciting, we haven't seen each other, me and Matt, for a much longer period.
It's been way too long.
Way too long. But the rest of us here at the studio, it's been a month or
just
6
long
weeks
enough.
or so. Just long enough.
Yeah.
And so tonight we're going to do kind of a special episode that we don't normally do. And we're going to do a kind of news episode because a lot has happened since we last saw each other, guys. And I feel like words need to be said about this stuff. So...
Do we need more words?
I mean,
or is there something else that should happen?
Well,
here?
I'm trying to produce content for my podcast, so I do need words at the moment.
Matt's a very action-oriented,
Pragmatic,
kind of
if you
person,
will.
Your Texas is showing.
Yeah,
something needs to happen.
and so since it has been busy, I do want to go back before the start of the new year a little bit and cover December 25th and what happened on that day. And you guys been keeping up with the news about
R.I.P.
that?
Tony Rice, best flat picker.
Christmas?
Yeah, died on Christmas morning.
Oh, well, I was more talking about the bombing in Nashville.
Yeah.
I mean, bless
equally,
it be
if not
the flat
more
picker.
tragic.
American hero.
Yeah, and so Christmas morning, a man with an RV just kind of drove it up and parked in front of the AT&T building with a loudspeaker saying the bomb would detonate. And so I've got a little bit of a timeline on that I kind of wanted to just go through for our first little segment with the news, and we'll kind of see where we go from there. So at 1:22 a.m., Anthony Quinn Warner, he parks this RV right there in downtown.
Sir Anthony Quinn?
I doubt it. Sounds like he lived in his RV, but that's speculation. Like 3 hours later, at 4:30 a.m., people wake up to, quote, several bursts of rapid gunfire. That's from the Tennessean, which is the local newspaper. At 5:32 a.m., more gunshots. Police responding to the shots see a suspicious RV. And at about 6 minutes later or so, the recording starts playing, announcing the RV will explode and residents should evacuate the area immediately. Around 6 a.m., a 15-minute countdown begins, telling people of the impending explosion intermittently. Like, it's also intermittently playing Downtown by Petulio Clark. And, you know, downtown. Which I'm going to read some of those lyrics because...
Really?
Yeah. I'm going to read some of those lyrics here in a second because I think it's kind of maybe a clue. Anyway, so at 6 a.m. it says 15-minute countdown begins, but the bomb doesn't detonate till 6:30 a.m. About midday of that same day, Warner's former girlfriend sees the event on the news and immediately suspects her former boyfriend. She had reported to the Nashville Metro Police in August of 2019 that Warner was building bombs in his RV, and so she also calls the FBI. At 5:05 p.m., human tissue is recovered and later confirmed the body was Warner. And so I just want to read a little bit of the lyrics, and we'll kind of dive into our discussion about what's going on here. But some of those lyrics from Downtown are, when you're alone and life is making you lonely, you can always go downtown. When you've got worries, all the noise and the hurry seems to help, I know, downtown. And you may just find somebody kind to help and understand you, somebody who is just like you and needs a gentle hand to guide them along. So maybe I'll see you there. We can forget all our troubles, forget all our cares. So go downtown. Things will be great when you're downtown. Don't wait a minute more. Downtown. Everything is waiting for you. So,
boom.
How do you guys... What are you guys feeling about this this little terrorist act?
Was the song playing when the bomb went off?
It was playing intermittently with the countdown, from what I understand.
But I mean, when it actually exploded, was it like downtown? Well, everybody.
I have no idea. Yeah, and it's just a really weird thing because basically, this is a couple weeks later. People really haven't figured out anything more about this.
So
guy.
was there like a known reason behind, like, did he perk specifically at a spot because he's like, screw this company or like this place or like I don't believe in whatever's going on here for that purpose, or was he just like that happened to be the parking
he was
spot
definitely
that was
making
open?
a point.
Yeah. And he parked in front of the AT&T building, and like nobody knows why he did it, but some investigations have kind of shown that he was interested in conspiracy theories, and so some speculation.
I heard he was
led,
a QAnoner.
Yeah, and some speculation has led to think he had like issues revolving like 5G, which AT&T is like currently in the process of building an infrastructure. He also parked in front of the AT&T building, so I mean he could be a 5G kind of guy, but again, until more information comes out,
5G kind of guy.
Yeah, nobody knows, dude. It's kind of a wild story.
Well, I mean, clearly,
maybe
it's not just like I'm trying to get my. He wasn't trying to get his way. Maybe he was trying to make a statement, but
he didn't have like.
He was trying to kill
demands.
himself.
Yeah,
so that's what he did. That was. It was just a very complex suicide. It sounds like.
That's
Well,
if you take that the ex-girlfriend, who obviously called the fucking cops on him,
and the FBI.
So the lyrics that he chose from that song,
that's what I thought was weird.
Play, it sort of paints a sadder story. I guess you might.
And it's almost like, I mean, I don't know,
but it is a happy song.
Yeah,
it's a happy song.
But it's like the same way people feel really happy during the Christmas time of year when they are hearing Christmas songs. Those same songs can be you can have a different reaction to.
Christmas is like one of the worst times of year for suicides and suicide hotlines and stuff like that.
Yeah, and so getting back to like the lyrics, I personally am kind of this like kind of speculative belief that like this was probably more of like a call, like a literal going out with a bang, you know? He wanted everybody to know how lonely he felt and how sad he felt and how the world wasn't listening, and maybe there's like a 5G or conspiracy theory layer. I personally don't know at this current time. But again, like just looking at the song that he played, because he didn't play it just one time. It was like repeated throughout these announcements and this countdown. I think there's something to say that maybe he's feeling lonely, and so that's the beginning lyric. When you're alone in life's making you lonely, you can always go downtown.
I do think it's interesting that he seemed like he was actively not trying to hurt other humans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
in the sense that they say that cops showed up because they heard suspicious shots. I mean, we've heard that a million times. Maybe he called the cops and let them know what was going down.
There is a theory that I haven't been able to like prove any of this, but there is a theory that he actually had the gun that those shots were coming from. So he was out in the street shooting this gun, or maybe shooting from in his RV in order to attract what seems like police. But he also had this announcement saying, "Don't get anywhere near it; it's gonna blow." And so it's kind of a hard case to crack, really.
You want the police to show up so they can get the people out of there.
Right.
That's kind of what it seems like to me, because the bomb didn't go off till 6, and he started most of this. Let me look at my notes. The first reports of gunshots were at 4:30 a.m., so that's an hour and a half beforehand. And like, I don't know that he did do the shooting. That's been a couple of theories that have been like passed around.
I'm definitely not trying to defend this nut.
No.
It is a strange situation that, causes a lot of people to theorize many different things. Mm-hmm. And it could have just been, some guy that was, no manifesto. Maybe he's just had some mental issues. I mean, just is not the right word. He had serious mental issues where, I'm sure we'll get to this at some point, like reading wild shit online
it can
got
make you
him
feel...
to the point where he felt like he needed to blow up an RV in front of an AT&T building
downtown.
Well, think of this, like if you say you suffer from clinical depression, something like that, right? And suicidal tendencies and clinical depression. This would be what a psychologist would diagnose you with. And then you start to believe all this crazy ass conspiracy shit. And the moment like you believe some conspiracy that makes you feel completely helpless, completely ineffectual in your world, well, how does that tip somebody over the edge of mild depression and
into acts like this,
into an act like
that's
this?
kind of something that I've always really focused on with the podcast is like where's that moment, you know?
I just think of like when they did the War of the Worlds radio show and people were tuning in and thought it was real and were killing themselves and stuff like that, because that's how quick, how fragile some people's minds are.
Yeah.
And
how scary fear can be too.
Because it's the mind killer.
Yeah, it really is. I'm excited for the new Dune movie. Yeah, and it goes to say that if you die in an explosion, there's a whole lot you wanted to say, or rather, if you commit suicide via explosion, there's a whole lot that you wanted to say. And I've heard some people compare it to like I forget if they're Tibetan monks or something like that. The self-immolation. Yeah, and some people have been comparing it to that and that self-martyrdom. What do you guys feel about that?
Kind of. That's
no manifesto. It's
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that when you were saying, I was like, well, maybe he's just doing some self-martyr type of stuff. I guess I'd be curious to like look into his background a little bit more to understand why he would want to self-martyr besides some clinical depression reason and stuff. Because I don't feel like what the people that light themselves on fire and stuff like that.
What if this guy was totally created out of thin air? Somebody made all of his profiles, and there's this girlfriend that called the cops or whatever.
We're gonna get into some false flag stuff, because it is an interesting question.
A conspiracy in and of itself.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm still curious what happened to that dude in Vegas.
Well, I mean,
like they just got some flesh and threw it in the rubble or whatever. Like in
well,
the
no.
RV,
In order to create that
videos.
kind of like the ability to get
be totally faked.
The ability to get DNA, you would have to have the body in there during the explosion in order for ballistics and forensics to match. You know what I mean? And so, in theory, he could have exploded while he was not alive after having a bullet put through his head. However, I haven't watched the surveillance tapes myself to know if anybody left that RV, if he just parked it and stayed there. Because that's really where we're going to find that kind of evidence.
That's what
it's kind of crucial to look into.
A good forensics team would be able to tell if a body had been dead for a while before it blew up, or if it blew up while it was alive.
I would just imagine that an explosion would make that a little bit more difficult.
If they're finding tissues, they were like, we found tissue of a human that blah, blah, blah. But they're not like, oh, we got the leg over here, the arm over there, just kind of piece it back together. This guy had necrosis.
Chemically, there'll be evidence.
And, much smarter people than us are on the case. So
nobody's fucking smarter than me.
They probably know a whole lot more about this
most
case.
Statement.
Sounded a little defensive.
That's all.
I'm not being defensive.
That's why I'm kind of more curious. Yeah, if it was like something aimed towards AT&T or that specific block, and the reason why
maybe he just parked randomly.
The reason, that's on or the reason why he didn't want anybody around. He gave like a sound fair warning that this shit's going down, so it could get out of the way, because he's not trying to hurt anybody else, but he is trying to make. I'd have to say he's trying to make some sort of statement, because otherwise you just go jump off a bridge or something like that. You shoot yourself in the head, but
you don't include a 1940s hit song into your audio broadcast for no reason. Mm-hmm. That's definitely a message.
Yeah, everything else is so planned out.
But it does kind of
that be part of the plan.
It does kind of sound like
gram.
He's not.
He's trying to go viral by having not just a manifesto, a piece of paper that he wrote something on, but like this weird artsy suicide bomber explosion thing.
Nobody gets my art. Oh, I feel terrible for having said that, but
Yeah, maybe they'll find like they'll go into the basement or something like that, or wherever and stuff he was staying, minus the RV, and find this like elaborate art collection that he's been doing for 20 plus years. But and you're like, holy shit,
yeah, and
this guy's like fucking Van Gogh or some bullshit.
Yeah,
You're just
or
like,
he's mentally deranged, and it's easy to find the materials to build a bomb.
Yeah,
it is from what the FBI has been telling the public.
Well, it's easy. That shit's super easy, and it doesn't take a lot of ingenuity to make something that's flammable into something explosive. It's pretty fucking simple, and the amount of like common chemicals that you just find anywhere to do that we rely on every single day.
Little household chemicals, little gardening.
I mean, since we were kids, we learned about mustard gas with bleach and ammonia. You don't mix these two fucking things under the bathroom sink,
Styrofoam and gasoline.
There it is.
Making napalm.
That's not really napalm, but
I know.
It's close. Napalm.
It'll work pretty well.
It still burns a big black circle in your friend's parents' driveway.
The difference
we might want to edit that out.
Napalm is that napalm reacts with oxygen and bursts
into flames.
It's like that shit and a hand warmer.
And they found pipe bombs at the insurrection.
Yeah. Actually, I think this is a good shifting point because we are going to be talking about... I think in the biz
they call that a segue.
A segue. I'm calling it a shifting point because I am a hack and a fraud. We're swerving. And let's talk about the Capitol building because that's on the docket for tonight. So, did you guys watch what happened?
I did watch videos. I will say right from the get that I haven't watched a cable news show in decades. So I don't know what they're saying in mainstream TV media. I just watch videos and come to conclusions.
Well, I actually
disclaimer.
Me and my lady we were gonna get ready to go out and go for a hike that day, and we just put on the news and we would brag. And we were having our cup of coffee before we left, and it was like 11 o'clock, and I saw this news article and it was like, hey, people are breaking into the Capitol, and I was like, well, that's not fucking something you see every day. But her smart TV is kind of dumb in that there's no like news station, so I had to go onto YouTube and just decided to go over to CNN for no fucking reason and watch their live stream and what was going on. And it was a goddamn shit show. Like, I watched it from the beginning to the end. We didn't do shit that day except watch this shit.
Fucking embarrassing.
Yeah,
Give me a trash can to kick.
Yeah, and so we're gonna talk. I'm gonna give kind of an rough outline of what happened, kind of hour by hour or so as we proceed forward. But again, feel free to interrupt me. Because around 1 in the afternoon, Trump supporters had just finished a Save America rally, where the president himself spoke for more than an hour.
Hold up. You can't call him that shit anymore. He's just a tin pot dictator at this point.
Where the tin pot dictator himself spoke for more than an hour. During the tin pot dictator speech, he said, quote, and after this, we're going to walk down there, and I'll be there with you. We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we are going to cheer our brave senators and congressmen and women. But that's not what happened. Lawmakers convene in the House of Representatives to certify the Electoral College votes in an act that is almost purely symbolic. And Vice President Mike Pence is the person in charge of counting these votes. And so the supporters, as well as Trump himself, outside and kind of just around everywhere because we're lousy with them, they incorrectly believe that Pence has the authority to overturn the results of what the Department of Homeland Security, Trump's Department of Homeland Security, called his Department of Security called the election, quote, the most secure in American history.
Well, that's the thing, is this has been at least the most looked at election. Like, the votes have been counted, recounted, and everybody's been up in there, and nobody has had this much oversight over an election in history.
Yeah, and it's fucking incredible how I really like it when we find corrupt people in government places. And so when they were like, voter fraud, I was like, cool, catch them. Catch whoever fucking did it. And of course, the right-wing people were like, it's the Democrats that are doing all this shit. I didn't care who it was. I was like, if there are people out here defrauding our voting system, let's fucking catch them. Let's get them.
Yeah.
So every time they were sent to these offices, I was like, come on, turn something up. Go to these courts, go to these juries and these judges and all this shit. Turn something up. Not a fucking lick of evidence turned up.
Over 50 judges threw that shit out for lack of evidence.
I was bummed.
And a lot of them appointed by Trump.
Yeah. And so, like...
3 of them.
So, being that the Trump rally...
Did he get 4?
No, he got 3.
3. All right.
Yeah, and so being that the Trump rally had moved from out front of like
Tin pot dictator,
it had moved to just out front of the Capitol building, and they were flying banners like "Stop the Steal." It's kind of unsurprising that these people just kind of whipped themselves into a frenzy, with right-wing media telling them that their election was stolen, which there's no evidence for, that the election was a landslide, which it was an incredibly close victory for Biden, and Trump incorrectly thinking that he won the election. The obvious next step for these so-called patriots was to do exactly what they've said that they would do for years, and the thing that they condemn everyone else for doing: violence. So early,
I mean, he did say before the election that if he lost, it was rigged.
Of course. Yeah, he was saying that all the way back in, I believe, like March. It's probably earlier, maybe even January, but I want to say
maybe
it's like
even
March.
2016. I mean,
yeah, I remember in like...
Who can remember that far back?
yeah, that last year was... Fuck. It's like getting into a drunk... and it was like getting into a vehicle with a drunk driver on a dirt road filled with potholes, and knowing that their suspension was bad and they're driving way too fast down it. And you're just like, something's going to break. We're going to flip. This fucking cliff is going to be the end of me. But you still get through all the way to the highway, and you're kind of safe at that point. Like, that's what this year was like.
One time I got into my buddy's Mustang, and we closed the door. It wasn't really a nice Mustang. Closed the door. It's me and my stepbrother in the back seat, him and his other buddy in the front seat. And my brother always used to make this joke: the stop signs with white borders are optional. Well, fuck, man, they all have white borders, you know, right? Well, this fucking dumb shit, little did we know, he was like tripping or something. He's like, oh, really? And just in the middle of Albany, on like an alley, crossing main streets, this dude just blows like 4 stops. And that's kind of what the last 4 years has felt like to me.
Yeah, you got
each
through
one of
those
those
4 stop signs.
Each one of those stop signs was another fucking...
And you're like, oh...
And I got out of that car.
He's got to see the next stop sign. Oh, no, he missed that one.
Screaming for him to stop. And we're like, let us the fuck out of this car.
For real.
So...
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so like...
And he died a block later.
We watched it. And so, like, early reports say that, like, the rioters pushed past the officers with little resistance to get in the building.
No, they let them in.
But in some cases, it does look like the police let them in. And it's hard to tell who did what exactly. But there are photos of cops taking selfies and directing the rioters around various buildings. And coming out just before we actually started the show, CNN is reporting that 2 Capitol Police have been put on suspension and up to 15 more under investigation as to their actions on that day. Seattle is investigating whether any of its own officers were involved in the insurrection. Reuters is reporting as of yesterday that West Virginia has also placed officers on leave as they continue to investigate their actions. So here's Reuters real quick. Quote, fire departments in Florida, New York, and New York City have also said that they reported to federal authorities allegations that some of their members may have been present when the mob broke into the Capitol as Congress met to certify the results of the November 3rd presidential election. The police department in the small town of Rocky Mount, Virginia, said on Sunday it had placed 2 officers on administrative leave after it had learned that they had attended an event in Washington, D.C. on Wednesday while off duty. And this is quoting them. The town of Rocky Mount fully supports all lawful expressions of freedom of speech and assemblies by its employees, but does not condone the unlawful acts that occurred that day, the department said in a statement, saying it had notified federal authorities.
Here's why this whole thing stinks. They knew ahead of time that this was going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
Even the president,
Weeks
Trump,
ahead of time.
tweeted, be there on January 6th. It's going to be wild.
Yeah.
If you look at anybody, go on anybody's right-wing social media, and they're talking about January 6th being the beginning of something. And so with all that knowledge, you're trying to tell me that they can't put a few more cops around the Capitol building, or better yet, like when we had the
National Guard.
BLM riots this summer and there was a goddamn army standing, like hundreds of dudes standing 3 feet apart, body armor, weapons, all this shit.
Fucking literally shooting people's eyes out of their face with fucking tear gas canisters.
And so we're going to say, oh, they only had the Capitol Police. There were only, like 30 or 40 of them and they couldn't hold them back. Hell no. They knew this was happening, and they're showing their ass, and the FBI's showing their ass when they say, hey, we need tips to help apprehend these people that broke into the Capitol building. Whoa. And Twitter had them shits in 24 hours, every last one of them.
So do you know why it was really hard to investigate espionage during like the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s?
Because people weren't posted that they were breaking the law right on the internet.
That too. That too. But it was really hard to determine whether a single employee who may have leaked a certain piece of data, it was really hard to determine whether they were bad at their jobs or intentionally bad at their jobs, i.e. committing espionage. And so, again, I was watching the reports of this for fucking all day Wednesday. And one of the reports that I saw, and it was an early report, it was saying something to the effect of the D.C. mayor was offered more policing and more essentially like military presence and using various departments, and she declined, saying that she had everything under order. She had everything under wraps.
And Trump denied the National Guard being sent.
Yeah.
And, oh, wait, an 8-member SWAT team showed up. I think it was an FBI SWAT team. What were they there to do? Extract that dead 10-year Air Force vet. Yeah.
It's a fucking wild thing. We're gonna get into some of the casualties and some of the results of the actual insurrection.
And let's just say right from the get, I support protesting. I don't care who does it. I support letting yourself be heard. You know what I mean?
Hell yeah.
That's not what this is
American
about.
as fuck.
But we're talking about white supremacists and Nazis. All these people that got pictures taken of them up in the Capitol building.
Well, and again,
looking all cool in their Viking shit.
Well, and not
got
only,
an Aryan Nation tattoo on his chest.
Not only
let's
that, but
not
some
miss
of these
that.
police officers are being investigated because they were directly associated with these white supremacy groups, and so and that's why some of these investigations that are ongoing are really interesting, because it might be sussing out the fact that maybe the cops did let them in, but I don't know if you guys know this, but cops and Klan go hand in hand, because Portland police was literally founded with a white Klan member is their chief.
Portland is one of the most interesting situations in America and does deserve its own podcast.
And so I think that there was a little bit of like
as far as like the people versus the police there, it's been going on for years.
Yeah, definitely, and Portland's got a very colored history of confrontations with the police and Klan members and supporting of the Klan members. There was an SS ship that came through in like the 40s or something like that, and the people of Portland went out there and they cheered it. They were like, "Ooh, SS ship is in our bay! Woo, go Nazis! Cool, you guys!"
In the 40s?
Yeah. Maybe it was like earlier than that, but there's
the 30s, maybe.
Yeah, maybe the 30s. But there is a story about
the 40s. We were at war with.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, so it had to be the late 30s, because that's a real thing that happened
Henry
in
Ford
Portland.
was a Nazi. Let's not forget how I probably said that twice too many already, but America does have a long history of being friendly towards Nazis.
They really do. And in fact, going further, I would actually like all of our listeners to kind of go over to Behind the Bastards. Robert Evans is a really good investigative reporter, and he does a lot of he was there all year long in Portland, just kind of covering the violence going on there, and he's got a podcast called Oregon Uprising, and a lot of his episodes are really just historically and factually based, and he goes in and cites his sources, and he's just a really good reporter. He's really good at what he does, and so if you guys like what you're hearing tonight and want to hear anything that might be more interesting and less gift of gab rather than investigative reporting, I would go over and check them out, Behind the Bastards. And having said that, it doesn't really matter how these people got into the building, because we're going to move forward in our storyline here. The results were the same. They got in. And around 1:30 p.m., C-SPAN reports that rioters had entered the Statuary Hall, which is kind of in between the House and the Senate. And so this is actually a really interesting story. I don't know of all the details, so forgive me, I don't have a source to cite here, but there was one story that I heard of actually a police officer. He was being reported as having led the mob down the wrong hallway, which may or may not have been intentional. And that may have actually had saved all the legislators and lawmakers in the building. Because while the mob was busy looking for these people in the complete opposite end of the building, these guys were over here, they were getting secure, and they were being locked down. They were ushered to secure locations, and all in all, they were protected from the angry mob. So that is a story that I heard about this that might be one of the more palatable and kind of positive stories about police. Because again, we don't really know what's going on. A lot of these cops are being investigated. Maybe this cop just didn't know what the fuck was going on and was trying to get them to...
You see the video of the one cop who is black running for his damn life, trying to keep a mob back with just his little pistol.
Yep.
And then you see the other cop, this big doughy white dude, taking selfies with the other white supremacists. And so it goes to show that, not all the cops believe the same thing, but the fact that so many of them lean this one way, it's a little bit scary. And I do think it's interesting that in this particular mob's case, even though they're flying bootlicking Blue Lives Matters flags and the thin blue line flags and all this different stuff, as soon as the cops weren't on their side, they were beating them with the flag sticks. They were tearing up their thin blue line flags, because if you're not on our side, you're against us.
And one thing I want to note too is that, the cops might not have done anything for various reasons, but if you are that overwhelmed, escalating the situation as a police officer in a crowd of thousands is not going to get them on your side. And so I can understand them actually standing back and not doing anything as a tactical retreat. They're trying to regroup and I
tell that to the BLM riots this summer.
Oh yeah,
how much police escalation did we see during that?
But
and it's not even right for me to call them riots, because they were peaceful protests, and they were escalated by police and by right wing and Proud Boys and whatnot.
Yeah, and again, I see it as a good tactical. If I was a police officer in that moment with a mob pouring towards me, I would want them to be on my fucking side. You know what I mean? There's thousands of them in this building. You don't know when backup is going to arrive. It's fucking terrifying.
Don't make excuses for their cowardice.
Oh, I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying it makes
drop the
sense.
first 10 motherfuckers in that line, and the next 10 ain't gonna step up when you're like, who's next?
But that's escalation. Right. And again, I'm not trying to defend the cops here either. What I'm saying is that I see why they might have made that decision. I think there was ulterior motives for certain, and they could have handled that a lot differently. Like as you were saying that we saw at the BLM protests, why didn't we have any of that kind of gear and backup there when we knew this shit was coming? But this actually is a good segue, nice turnaround, if you will, into our next little segment. We're still going to be on the timeline, but we're going to be talking a little bit more about the fomenting, the causing of the uproarious and this uprising, getting people riled up, and that's kind of
why this shit happened.
Yeah, and so out front of the Capitol building, they broke windows, they waved their thin blue line flags and Trump 2020 flags. But some were also photographed and videoed wearing shirts like Camp Auschwitz and 6MWA. 6WMA stands for 6 million wasn't enough, and these shirts are anti-Semitic, and they really...
With an A for enough, too? Good God.
Sorry. AMWE. Sorry. That's my bad. And they really highlight the point of view that some of these patriots have. These people, all these shirts are in reference to Holocaust denialism, and all this is kind of a slightly
it's straight "Kill the Jews" T-shirts is what those are.
Yeah, basically, that's 6 million wasn't enough.
Yeah,
that's like kill the rest of them. That's what that says.
Yeah.
We should kill the rest of the Jews.
Yeah, and
I'd love to see somebody wearing that shirt.
Yeah,
I'm glad I now know what it looked like, what that means.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's
holy
fucking,
fuck.
It's
I'm gonna lose my shit.
That these were the people that were associated with the Trump brigade. And actually, I recently I was coming over here, and another great podcast that I like to listen to is called Knowledge Fight, and they were covering Alex Jones and his speech at the Trump rally right before this, or maybe it was during this, whichever, it doesn't matter, same thing. And he started talking about COVID because he was getting them all heated up about the president overturning the results and then all this stuff, church and God. And then he started talking about COVID, and you can hear everybody get quiet in the crowd. And one guy's like, "Know your audience," or he says "Read the room" or something like that. They all start kind of booing him, and so he has to switch back over to the God talk. It's so funny. I brought him up because he's a fomenting asshole. And for weeks, this rage has, like, these people, their rage has just been fucking building online. And as we've seen with some of our other episodes, self-radicalization is really easy. And in places like 4chan, 8chan, and 8kun, these have done untold amount of damage to
and Facebook.
Yeah, and Facebook. These have done a shitload of damage to the minds of American citizens. But it's not just Americans. Brendan Harrison Tarrant killed 51 and injured 40 more in the Christchurch, New Zealand mosque shootings, and he cited right-wing global conspiracy theories. Ironically, the event itself has now been labeled a false flag attack by some of those same conspiracy theories. So we can kind of see it like a little thing where these people, they get really like, they want to rile each other up, and they want each other fucking hot and bothered. They want each other boiling at the top of the pot. And they're telling each other, we got to start a revolution, we got to kill people, we got to start a revolution. And then as soon as somebody shoots somebody, or something bad happens, or a bad piece of publicity happens, these people immediately turn around and say, those people,
wasn't real.
That wasn't us.
Wasn't me.
Which is going to come up again here in a few minutes, because this shit gets wild. And so it's easy to see kind of the growing trend of the alt-right and right-wing violence. Trump himself told the Proud Boys, a Western/white nationalist and chauvinist movement, and his supporters to, quote, stand back and stand by during the presidential debates, and has been pushing his agenda to be reelected despite not having won. He's also been doing everything he can to overturn the results of the election, even going so far as to deny factual events like the attempted kidnapping of Michigan's Democratic governor, commenting on that with, quote, maybe it was a problem, maybe it wasn't. So around 2:24 p.m., the president tweets, quote, Mike Pence didn't have enough courage to do what should have been done to protect our country and our Constitution, giving states a chance to certify a correct set of facts, not the fraudulent or inaccurate ones which they were asked to previously certify. USA demands the truth, exclamation point. So that's, again, about 2:30-ish. And, this is kind of when the big push inside happens. Around 3 o'clock, people start taking photos and videos, and they start ransacking the building, finally having made it to the Senate floor. The Senate floor where just 2 hours previously, lawmakers had assembled to finalize the election results. This was literally the place where our nation's liberty lives. So this is a huge fucking deal, and I want to really emphasize that. Did you have a thought?
Yeah, this wasn't something where... oh, things aren't going the way we thought it was going to go. We didn't know that Pence wasn't going to overturn this. They had a gallows already built. You don't build a gallows in 2 hours. They were ready
accidentally.
They were ready to hang Mike Pence if he didn't do what they thought he should do.
Yeah, and I think our electors actually, like, it sounds like they were just fine, and we kind of just sweep over that. But again, if that story holds up that I told you earlier about that police officer, or maybe it was an attendant or something like that. So literally when they stormed in, they could go left and get to all the lawmakers, or they could go right and get to another chamber that kind of looks like where they are, but isn't, because they don't know civics very well, and so neither do I either. And so literally this moment of turning left or right actually perhaps even saved a lot of these lawmakers. I mean, most of them are pieces of shit anyways, but again, this is like the place where our nation's liberty lives.
I don't care if they're pieces of shit. They can't be allowed to be ripped apart by the mob.
No.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's
there's no room for mob justice or mob mentality or mob rule.
I'm going to say
no room.
I'm going to say it, and it's a hill I'm going to die on, especially a mob that's full of Trump people. I know most of those people are like family members that I have and stuff like that. But I'm not going to let a group of Trump people go in and decide who lives and dies in a fucking
Trump people. This is more than just Trump at this point.
A bunch
this
of
is
Nazis kill more Jews people.
These are white supremacists, neo-Nazi, right-wing radicals.
Yeah,
that's what it is. And Trump just happens to be their guy right now, and he's really great at speaking to those people and has forever.
Yeah, and I think the vanilla ISIS and the Al Qaeda, I think those things have they hold a lot of water when you start putting them side by side and start comparing them. So like I think that there is kind of this like really ISIS-y insurrection, and don't forget ISIS stands for the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, which implies a religious backing to everything that they're doing, which we kind of see being the main thread lined through all all of these quote patriots, their mentalities that these things are happening for God. This is a Christian nation, and we are upholding that, and it's fucking terrifying.
I don't think it's being extreme to say that one of the biggest threats to humanity is radical religious people,
religious ideologies.
Yeah. Well, just
it doesn't even have to be radical. Religion in general is a threat to humanity at this point.
Yeah.
Especially if we keep going at this way of we want to hyper radicalize people and get them to like. I had one of
extreme.
I had a friend.
Everything.
I had a friend come up and talk to me one day, and he was like, "You're a libertarian and you don't know it." And I kind of laughed at him because it's like that they so desperately want to.
Is that person really your friend?
I mean, arguably, but I would consider them my friend in the sense that I don't have any ill will towards them.
Well, I got one thing to say is that you cannot call yourself a libertarian and be a bootlick and cop supporter. Those are the rules.
It's oxymoronic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you can't be flying that thin blue line flag and call yourself a libertarian.
No. And so we were just talking about around 3 o'clock, people started breaking in. That's when we start seeing like the boots on Pelosi's
And if you smoke
desk.
weed, you're a liberal. Sorry to break it to you.
Yeah, that's when we start seeing boots on Pelosi's desk. We see the weird shaman guy who we'll get into here in a little bit.
With the Aryan Nation tattoo.
Yeah, and so so just after that at 3:13, Trump tweets, quote, "I'm asking everyone at the U.S. Capitol to remain peaceful, no violence, exclamation point. Remember, we, which is capitalized, are the party of law and order. Respect the law and our great men and women in blue. Thank you," end quote, which is very ironic because Back the Blue supporters ended up killing a policeman with a fire extinguisher. But that's for a different time. So as the Capitol was being raided, looted, and ransacked, and ultimately disrespected, the press, legislators, and government representatives all came forward through various news sources, and they asked the president to stop his literal army. Finally, around 4 p.m., 1,100 National Guard soldiers were mobilized to help law enforcement, and they slowly began to retake the Capitol building. And it takes just around 2 hours to remove everybody from like the building, and then around 3 hours.
But they just let them go.
They let them go.
They brought the army in, but they were like exit on through that door.
All right.
Instead of being like y'all are all under arrest.
If you know the answer, don't shout it out. But can you guys guess how many people were arrested directly after that, or as the push began?
I'm gonna guess
no more than
like
a dozen.
16.
What do you think, Shawn?
I mean, I feel like it's stupid low. It's like 5.
You guys were almost on it. It was 14. 14
Jesus.
people were arrested during this entire
But
thing.
1,600 people were arrested in Minneapolis after George Floyd got murdered by a cop.
Yeah.
Somehow they had the energy for that.
I mean,
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, they weren't most of those people colored. Yeah, there.
weird. Maybe
And
there's
that's why you don't want to draw racial lines through some of these things, but it's impossible to fucking ignore.
It really is.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
So when we talk about at 4 p.m. having the 1,100 National Guard soldiers being mobilized, they had asked Trump like 2 hours prior to this to send in the troops. And
He said, nah.
he was like, nah.
I think we're
I
good.
don't think it's that big of a deal.
What do you mean by we're?
We're doing just fine. Exactly. What do you mean we're? Because again, this is when cops started being overrun, and not to be sympathetic towards cops, but like they need backup. If you're in a situation where you're trying to uphold the peace,
crazy
if you're a bouncer at a bar,
storming the Capitol, I think
The
just
Capitol
need to
Police
stop
are
that.
less police as they are security.
But just
They are guards.
But
they're
what I'm
not
saying
the
is-
guy patrolling the street giving you a hard time because you're fucking black kid with a hoodie on.
I'd say that's more or less fair. Yeah.
What I get at though is it's like the Capitol building's around so many other things right there. It's not like there's not cops. There's not like a bunch of enforcement. Like that whole area is enforced. And I know some of it's security guards or more or less, type of deal. And that, but if you do anything in that general little district where the Capitol is, the White House, the Washington Monument, all this other stuff.
There's like 11,000 cameras.
There's a helicopter that's just like once an hour, every 40 minutes or something like that, just circles like the area.
But nobody could have predicted this mob that was moving directly from a Trump rally to the national Capitol would do anything other than.
And it's like at that point, the security guard
happen.
guy for the Capitol they have a dial whatever number. We need better. Like we need to, Capitol shit, hey, security guards can't handle a tourist right now.
Yeah.
And stuff.
Somebody's
and,
pooping in the lawn.
Code red, this is bad.
And they also had a lot of notice that this was going to happen.
Yeah,
and I
again,
remember
weeks.
it wasn't that long ago that some woman got shot to death in her car making a U-turn next to the White House. I mean, I don't know if it mattered that she was black, but still, like, usually if you're in that
it probably
area,
doesn't matter.
Security is pretty fucking tight.
Yeah, anywhere in that general area, I've walked around and stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, they don't fuck around.
Actually,
here.
a couple years ago, and
this is like there's eyes all over that whole district right there, and it's not like for me, it's even if they didn't pre-gear up for this, let's say, they're like, we don't really know, and I would see it more as like big deal if we pre-prep, because we don't need to be like waiting on it, because that almost encourages it just a little bit if you're already standing like the National
But they
Guard.
already did that for the BLM riots all summer long. They had armies of cops in full gear.
They had
not just
big 7-foot tall unscalable fences put up, and they took all that
Right.
shit down and replaced all that fencing with those stupid ass fucking crowd gates that you see outside of concerts, to like just so people weave back and forth.
No, and
properly.
that's I get it. It's like, so even if you don't pre-prep for it, there's no reason why in less than 5 minutes you don't have 1,100 people there, because the dude that's doing the main security or whatever at the Capitol, he's like, oh shit, this thing's actually happening.
This is getting big.
Hits the code red button, they go, hey, Capitol needs defense. It's not a question.
Right.
That isn't
Somebody's
like,
attacking the Capitol. You'd think
like-
the army
and
would show
there's
up
a
in
button
10
for
minutes.
that.
Yeah.
with
She's like,
flags.
yeah,
If that
exactly.
button
Marines
goes-
in the Chinook helicopters show a force.
Right.
You know what I mean? In
It's
full battle rattle.
It's just like,
not the shit the cops
the guy
wear.
hits like the code red, this is not a drill, and the guy's like, I'll pass it along, and it's like there is no kind of doing that button, you know what I mean? If the guy hits that button,
Then he's
it's
got to
like,
send a telegram to
it's
the
like-
West Coast, and then that's got to get translated into Chinese. Run up a train line, 20 miles from Sacramento to wherever,
And then does it go through the air tube thing?
and then
after that?
an air tube all
And
the
then
way back.
I'm pretty
And
sure
that's-
Paul Revere has to ride up the coast with lanterns or something.
yeah.
No, he's got the pumpkin.
So I was going to say, and at the same time, there's already a dude on a horse just taking the note direct, and then there's this elaborate thing behind it and stuff in
That's
case
the backup.
in case the guy on the horse doesn't make the
Right.
note.
Well, that's funny because
Right.
that's
And if
exactly
those two things fail, they'll use the satellite uplink to instantaneously transmit
all right,
the data.
Which
just
is funny,
send an email.
because that's exactly what Mike Pence's job used to be, where they would have
Telegraph operator.
Yeah, they would
Seems about
they would
his
essentially
speed.
take the electoral college results, and they would send them off in a couple of different couriers. So like one of them is definitely going to land, and yeah, because travel became so easy, we could transmit information electronically now. Again, that's basically what Mike Pence's job was to
Purely
do on
symbolic
this
now.
day. Yeah, and so again, when I said it was purely symbolic, is that it basically is. The results are in, we know what's going on, and this is just him taking the results from these states, bringing them back to the Capitol on his horse, and then Paul revering the shit out of it, and then reading it in front of Congress. Like, that's his job. That's why what they did today, which we'll get into a little bit, it's just not even symbolic.
Today?
So we're going to get back to the timeline, because around 4:17, just about just after the National Guard troops are mobilized, the president said through his channels that a video would be posted soon, and Trump's address said in its entirety this, I quote, "I know your pain. I know your pain. I know you're hurt. We had an election that was stolen from us. It was a landslide election, and everyone knows it, especially the other side." I'm going to quit the accent. But you have to go home now. We have to have peace. We have to have law and order. We have to respect our great people in law and order. We don't want anybody hurt. It's a very tough period of time.
What time was this?
This was 4:17.
So there'd already been some people pretty fucking hurt at that point.
Yeah, definitely. You could say that people were even dead around that time. So
That lady'd already been shot in the fucking neck.
pretty sure. So again, it's a very tough period of time. There's never been a time like this where such a thing has happened, where they could take it away from all of us, from me, from you, from our country. This was a fraudulent election, but we can't play into the hands of these people. We have to have peace. So go home. We love you. You're very special. You've seen what happens. You see the way others are treated that are so bad and so evil. I know how you feel, but go home, and go home in peace.
So he's like head patting a 4-year-old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like,
You're
you
special.
little rascal.
You did what you need to do.
Yeah.
Now go
Timmy,
home and sleep
you're
it
not
off.
supposed to fight, but I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself.
That's exactly what it is. It's him.
exactly what it
It's him just being
But if
like.
they punch you in the eye, you better swing back, and you didn't hear that from me, and nor do you
Don't
repeat
tell your
it.
mama said that.
Well, what I think is really striking is there is not a stark denouncement of what's happening. Like he just says we have to have law and order. We have to respect our great people in law and order. But he doesn't ask for law and order.
Because this is not done yet. We might think that this was people have been calling it a failed coup. No, we're in the middle of a coup. That is what's actually
this is the
happening.
start. Yeah. So.
And I do love the joke calling them the Ku Klux Klan, but there's just too much evidence that this is the beginning of something and not the end.
And that's what's really scary about him getting out of office in any regard. Whether it's him being impeached, 25th Amendment, which we're going to get into.
Neither of those things will happen.
Or whether it's him actually going through and, having Biden elected and him having to legally step down from his position. The problem with that remains is that now we have what amounts to a cult leader with a wide following. We have this person who is now uncaged and literally uncaged.
It is a wide following too. Let's not just gloss over that, because 70-something million people voted for him, and even if only half of those agree with him as a person, that's a huge number of Americans.
Yeah. Well, and what's weird too is I was seeing actually protests in Japan on this same day where they were holding up Trump 2020 flags. And so it has become this worldwide cult phenomenon, not unlike Sun Myung Moon and his cult. I forget the name of it, but let me look that up real quick, because it is...
Like, it's easy to make
still
fun
around.
of these cheddar dicks up there in their Viking hats and putting their feet up on Nancy Pelosi's desk and all that. Like, it's easy to make jokes about these people,
Yeah,
but
but
they're an emblem of a much larger movement that is going on that, we should recognize. It's not just a bunch of wingnuts, and it's not just a bunch of Republicans, and it's not just a bunch of Trump people. It's a wide movement of people that believe some fucked up shit.
Well, and I like to highlight this a lot. So listeners, sorry if you're hearing me repeat this, but Sun Myung Moon and the Unification Church, they started in Korea and they just expanded and they grew throughout the United States, excuse me, and throughout the world. And when they moved to the United States, they actually created a place called the Washington Times, which is a news center. And if you don't know anything about like journalism or you're just kind of a cursory news reader, you're going to get the Washington Times confused with the Washington Post. And so you're going to buy some of this shit. And this paper, which is still going on now, which is now an online paper, is still run by this cult. And they are in right-wing politics and are doing what they can to keep things moving right. And so when we start talking about like foreign collusion, I think it's important to also look at the fact that like that this is destabilization.
Yeah.
Like at its core.
Right.
And this is what Russia and China and a few Middle Eastern countries, probably some in South America as well, want to see happen here. Mm-hmm. They want us to eat ourselves.
Yeah, that's why like places like the John Birch Society, people like Jordan Peterson, Dinesh D'Souza, Alex Jones, these people by themselves are not harmful at all, but they don't exist within this vacuum. And it's so important to like Trump finally got kicked off Twitter, and it's because he's fomented insurrection. They're literally inciting these kinds of rebellion, but they're not good rebellion. They're based upon, as we were saying earlier, zero facts. No court cases have backed up any evidence that they have for the claims that they're making. And it is wild because you'll hear things like Pelosi eats children and wants to fuck little kids or whatever. And it's like,
meanwhile, there's pictures of Trump on Epstein's Island having a good old time.
it's wild. Anyway, so 7 hours. Sam, did you have a thought you wanted to...
No, I probably... the thoughts I'm having right now, I wouldn't care to put on record.
It is really interesting to me on a global humanitarian cultural level that the left wants to have a revolution. The right also wants to have a revolution, and they do not want the same things.
Yeah, it's pretty weird. But we are going to touch on a little bit of positive news here. 7 hours after the uprising-ish, Congress reconvenes on the Senate floor, counting and confirming the Electoral College votes. The coup, or insurrection, lasted a total of, again, 7-ish hours and accomplished literally nothing to change the results of the presidential election. Their coup failed to hold the Capitol building, and when all the chips were down, only delayed Congress by a few hours. In the end, the crowd was poorly organized, had no grievances to air as they held the building, and this coup ultimately failed to produce anything except for arrests, investigations, and questions about security. And actually, I'm going to put an addendum to that. It also failed to produce anything except for a fear of further coups. And go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, they do have a list of demands. They aren't done yet.
No.
I don't know if you've seen any of the right-wingers that got kicked off of Parler.
You mean the social network that no longer exists
exactly.
as of yesterday?
Well, they're all over TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter talking about how January 17th is when they're going to do the same march, but this time they're going to be armed. And amidst all those flag-waving clowns on January 6th, there were dudes in tactical gear with zip ties and a plan.
We're going to get into that.
And one of them was the co-founder of Black Rifle Coffee. And I've been calling them a white supremacist organization for a while, and now you know.
So you heard it here. Fuck Black Rifle Coffee.
Black Rifle Coffee.
No, we get a lot of beef in
I don't need
the show.
patriotic coffee.
Yeah.
Shit costs way too much anyway.
Dude, it's like
where's this extra funding going?
Anyway, so we're going to talk...
To that shit. So that guy can have the nice tactical gear so he can go fucking kidnap Nancy Pelosi or something.
So we are going to talk a little bit about the damage and kind of the results that are going on here. This is a little bit more freeform and kind of less scripted. But, you know, guys, what are we dealing with in terms of, like, damage and the results? There was classified and probably sensitive documents here. Like, that there could have been foreign agents that were infiltrating these places and maybe catching snaps or downloading, whatever they could have. And I'm not trying to speculate here either, but I'm saying this is a serious security risk. So what are you guys' kind of thoughts on the damage that's going on, that went on here?
I mean, from what I was, like, digging into the day it was happening, all this was going on, it seemed like there were a lot of reports of people just, like, evacuating their office with their computer open, unlocked, emails open, available for anybody. And at that point, like, once you're through a passcode firewall, like, once you have access to that piece of equipment, I don't know what you can do.
Yeah.
I don't have really a clue, but I'm sure it's not great. Well, and so there's obviously, like, this super risk of something.
Well, I've seen a lot of people talk about, like, security risks. Like, how are you going to let all these people just go up into the Capitol building and then just take over and, like, hang out for a while? Like, we need to have better security around the Capitol. I feel like that's kind of missing the whole point. Like, they let them in. They let them go up in there and rifle through everybody's drawers and check out their computers. And the consequences are going to be minimal. I heard that one of the dudes that was photographed at the Capitol building is facing a maximum of 1 year in prison. And if we I thought America had anti-sedition laws that included hanging. Well, so a 1 year in prison?
Well, and right now, what they're getting a lot of people for is trespassing, and so because there is so much goddamn footage. Actually, Bellingcat is an open source investigative kind of newspaper, and so they just have people like you here, all of us here, people listening. They just have people like us go through and filter through information that they find, whether it's a Google map, whether it's a document that was passed through there, whether it's scrubbing social media pages. For instance, they actually released a thing that was saying, hey, if you want to, you can look up on Google downloading Facebook videos. So you can actually capture some of these videos that other people were posting at the time of the Capitol protests. So Bellingcat released this tweet that was saying, here's how you do it. This is what you can do, but you have to do it now because when this happened in Charleston, 48 hours later, most of the stuff had been scrubbed. So do it now. And then a couple of hours later, Bellingcat came out with a open Google document drive, from what I understand, where they were just having people throw their evidence in. And so there's a lot of evidence to process when we look at capturing a single person. So yeah, if you are if you are arrested for some of the, for literally rioting in the Capitol building, you might only be facing at this moment it's kind of more or less a trespassing charge. I can't remember what it was, but it's access to a building without authorization or something.
Yeah, I got a buddy that spent a year in jail for walking across a bank parking lot at 2 a.m.
Damn.
North Carolina.
Jesus Christ. And so, yeah, like, I understand a lot of them are only getting a year. I'm sure most of them are going to be getting what we would see as a more smack on the wrist.
No-fly list.
Yeah. I mean, that's been really funny. If you guys listening haven't done it, go check out hashtag no-fly list. There's so many videos of white supremacists, Trump supporters, being very angry that they were caught there.
We call them white wingers now.
White wingers, yeah. I've been kind of liking that one too. And but there's video. There's one in particular where this guy is getting arrested in the airport because he's on the no-fly list for having done what he did. And he's literally screaming, "You're treating me like a black person." Pretty cool, right? Trump supporters, baby. But that's why I use Trump supporters. I use Nazis. Like, there's a lot of terms for them. Alt-right, right-wingers, white wingers. Like,
Republicans.
Like, you can call it whatever you want. A pear is a pear is a pear. It doesn't fucking...
The thing is you might not agree with the guy wearing the Camp Auschwitz shirt, and you're a Trump voter, Trump supporter. I don't even care if you voted for him. If you're still a Trump supporter, and you might not agree with that guy, but that's still on your side. That's still your dude.
That's your dude. Yep. You advocated for this guy
because it's not just him. It's like millions of them.
Well, that's something I was the other day talking with Casey for a second, and she was bringing up these. Identifying these different attitudes of people and like how much it was upsetting her and stuff like that. And, I'm listening to her and she's going off on this and I kind of realized this thing that I was like, what's like, it's not really like that one person and stuff. I was like, the real sad part about this is that this is not the only person.
Right.
Yeah.
This is like, there is so many people that literally agree with all this stuff and everything that's going on and all this shit. And I was like, the real sad part about is the actual number of people there are that are like that.
And they're your friends
like,
too.
That's just something that's there. And
not my friends.
And
I don't know.
Like,
I don't have any friends that are Nazis.
Yep.
It's
that
like,
I know of.
It's like, holy shit, like.
Yeah, I definitely don't have any friends that are Nazis.
And I'm
because
actually
that
gonna.
Shit matters.
I actually do have friends that one of them I'll quote as saying
is a Nazi.
Well, he's not a Nazi, but he said something along the lines: "If you're not willing to go out and boog with me, delete me now as your friend." I haven't, because we're gonna get into that here in a second.
If you're
not down to go boog.
What's that mean?
Does that mean hang a black person, or does that mean light a cross on fire in your yard?
Boogaloo. From what I gathered from it, maybe it's a typo, but it means boogaloo. And the boogaloo boys are people that are wearing Hawaiian shirts and carrying AR-15s, and
they're the original Tiki Torch.
And they're
fucks.
Rittenhousing people. Yeah, they're the Tiki Torch fucks. So these are the boogaloo boys. These like right wingers. And this was one of my friends from my hometown. And so we're going to get into why he's still my friend on Facebook here in just a minute, because I do want to highlight a couple more things that were like damage and results of these people storming into this building.
American politics will never be the same.
So, for instance, I don't know if you guys know, but it is apparently extremely patriotic to take your literal shit and smear it down the halls of this building. So that's cool.
I'm not even mad at that.
I don't feel one way or the other about it. I just want you guys to know.
I don't have any sympathy for the politicians in this case, to be honest.
And so another little factoid: 5 people died. One who was a veteran was died by gunshot, and another was photographed earlier in the day holding a "Don't Tread on Me" flag, and she was trampled to death. So I mean,
wait,
if it wasn't sad,
by the crowd or by
the crowd, yeah. And so like if it wasn't sad, it'd be kind of funny and ironic.
It's awfully fucking ironic.
It's very ironic, and again,
we care so much, we'll kill one of our own.
No step on snake.
And like I'm one of the people.
They beat a cop to death.
I'm one of the people that kind of lives within the realm of kind of like all life is sacred, and so for me, that is like all the people that died here. I feel for their families. Like it's death is not an easy thing for even me myself to deal with, and so like this isn't. it's sad. It's sad. Ironic. And again, if it wasn't so sad, it'd be funny.
What do you mean for even a person like yourself, death is hard too?
Well, what I just mean is like
I was like, wait a second.
I struggle with that. I don't have a soul, so when I die, it's
because you got your red hair.
Because I'm ginger, yeah. So when I die, there's nothing. I don't know. You guys are like, you could be saved, and I'm like, it's bullshit. So another thing that happened was President Trump he was banned from Twitter and basically virtually every other social media site.
Blah blah.
I've heard
except YouTube.
I've heard rumors that he's been trying to make new Twitter accounts under like different names, and
You
I've
should
seen
just
some
ask
parodies
Kevin
of it.
Durant how it's done.
It's kind of a funny thing to continuously watch because I don't know how accurate the reports are, but it seems like he's still trying to like infiltrate Twitter and get his message out, and it's just so sad.
I blocked Trump on Twitter 3.5 years ago.
Good for you. More people need that kind of self-discipline and like self-care in their life.
I don't need to hear anything that con man says.
And so, so people are now being afraid of big tech because of like these kind of shutdowns. And they've been talking in right-wing groups about where they'll go if and when they leave and how to get kind of right-wing news. And they think that they're jumping ship to a secure app, but like apps like Parler steal a bunch of your data. But these people think that they're jumping ship to like secure apps, but they have people who are like me that follow them. And here's kind of what they're going, or where they're going to and what they're doing, guys, because I've been following a lot of these right-wing sites, and they're going now to apps like Rumble, Clout Hub, Gab, Stratus, and Parler, which was just taken down, and WeGo. So I don't know if you guys know this, but these super sleuths, these super good people that are really good at espionage and stuff like this, they're going to all these different sites. So I don't know if you, the listener, kind of want to go and check out what they're doing. But these are the rumors that I'm hearing in the interwebs.
They're on TikTok, they're on Facebook, they're everywhere.
It's kind of hard to ignore
and
the
they're
silent
all talking
majority.
About the 17th.
It's really hard to not hear the silent majority. So I'm also going to tell you guys just about how easy this infiltration is. Because like these Trump followers, again, they feel like they're so slick asking other Trump supporters which social media sites to go to. And honestly, they're hoping that they're going to find their own like right-wing Facebook. And again, in their attempt to like jump ship, they're leaving they're just leaving notices and breadcrumbs everywhere for journalists, for researchers, and sleuths like me to kind of follow them and hear what they're saying and to know what they're planning. And it's been funny to see what they say when they think no one is looking, but it's also really sad. Also, infiltration is super easy, guys. I'm in this group called the Patriot Party on Facebook, and I infiltrated them literally by just answering their stupid questions according to how I think they think. You know, it's like, who's the president of the United States? Donald Trump. You're always going to click that.
If you're brainwashed, yes.
And so once you've answered their questions to their satisfaction, they'll just accept you onto the group or page. I've got dreadlocks in my profile pic, and I'm in like 6 of these pages. Probably more, but... so yeah, now you're done. You're done infiltrating, guys.
Now you're on an FBI watch list.
Easy.
Now you're on an FBI watch.
And I don't know about you guys, how you guys feel, but
podcast.
But I actually got some screenshots if you guys are interested in taking a look to see what the Patriot Party page has to say on Facebook. You guys interested in seeing any of that?
Oh, no. Yes.
It is good. And
Let's see. Pass it around.
So this person, actually we'll do that. And so I'm gonna go ahead and pass this around. Go ahead and just swipe right once you're done reading that, and or swipe left rather, and those are the responses to this question. And just no names or anything.
New to the group, never give up. Declassified information will be dropped soon. How do you know? WikiLeaks dumped all their online. Hillary's lost emails. The Vegas shooting. So much stuff we thought was gone. Nope. Hang out tight. Ride's gonna get bumpy. I mean, this shit's everywhere.
Here, no, let me see. I wanna direct Sam to a specific one, I think.
And that's the thing is like there have been conspiracy quote unquote theories that have been proven to be true, like the whole CIA spreading crack cocaine through the inner cities of America. Like that turned out to be true once the declassified information was released. And the way they combat some of these serious conspiracies is by flooding the conspiracy market with the wildest shit that you can imagine.
Right.
Yeah.
And to the point where, if there's so much of it, you don't know what to sift through. You don't know how to sift through it. And that's why people either believe it all or they don't believe any of it. And that's why we have, well, that's not the only reason, but that's one of the reasons we have such a fractured society, because everybody believes all of something or nothing of something. And there's no longer any.
And there's a term for it in psychology. It's all or nothing thinking. And it's that it's not being able to access maybe a kernel of truth inside this bigger story.
Tyranny. I think a lot of it is because people don't have the self-confidence to be able to think for themselves.
That's where if I can't make a decision, I just don't look into it. I'm like, nope, that's going to be an all or nothing, and I can't do it with that topic.
Yeah. Tyranny is the destruction of nuance.
Exactly.
That is when your society becomes so polarized that it's either right or wrong. You are a Republican and I'm a Democrat, and
that's it. You can't.
You're
be
not even
else.
a person now.
Right.
Unless you're a company or corporation.
Oh, jeez.
Pass me that, Sam.
I'll let the screen.
You don't have my password. Just pass it.
And I'm not a Democrat. I've never been a Democrat. I registered as an independent like an idiot, and now I can't vote in anybody's primaries.
You can.
But that's kind of the point. Like, I'm not a Republican by any stretch of the imagination. However, there's not any room for an independent in America, and America's one of the only countries that has a two-party system, and it's whack.
Yeah,
we're an independent country.
Anyway, Sam,
can't be independent.
Right.
What did you find from the Patriot Party?
Okay, with this guy here, this fellow new member, posted something from site abcnews.go.com. Maybe that's actually ABC News.
Yeah, seems like it could be.
Armed protests being planned at all 50 state capitals, FBI bulletin says. And then got this guy here. His comment is, I have talked to several people in my local groups in my area, and no one knows who is planning these. They say they believe their setups, and they urge no one to go. If you want to drive by one with no gun, and if there's tons of media there, then you know it's a scam, because there is no media to stop the steel rallies I went to. Huh.
Yeah, it's there's more there, Sam, if you want to keep reading.
I mean,
it's all bad. Well,
it seems like they all think it's all fake news.
Yeah.
They're setting us up. This isn't true. Don't go and spread the word.
And it's really funny because...
Oh my God, they're already setting the stage.
See, this is
war
really...
on Americans by our own. It's a lefty operation. Don't go.
And see, this is why you can't trust Trump supporters or neo-Nazis, because they don't even trust each other.
Of course, ABC would come up with that. I love this. It's a lefty operation. Don't go.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. You subject yourself to every day.
I'm just gonna go right out on a limb and agree with those people that they shouldn't go. Whatever it was they were planning on doing, they shouldn't go. Don't do that. Stay home. Don't let us see your fucking faces, because you're Nazis.
And that's something that's disappointing to me is, these white supremacist neo-Nazi fucks were hiding out in their caves for most of my childhood.
Yeah.
And then I kind of thought that was dying out. And now it's coming back in a big fucking way.
Yeah, so I've got one more screen capture that I want Shawn to go ahead and read, because it's a short and sweet one, but I think it really gets to the point of what we're kind of talking about here.
Let's see. It says, I keep seeing posts about staying away from armed protests. Why would anyone announce they are going to protest armed? I feel like it's a ploy to keep patriots at home. Please share your thoughts. It's my intention to be in Washington, D.C. the 17th through the 21st.
So, what is that indicative of? Again, that they can't trust each other? And that they don't know whether... They're badly organized, guys.
Nobody can trust anything.
And that's
nobody can trust any of the news or any of the tweets or any of the anything, because nobody knows what's really going on.
Yeah, because...
when you read it, I keep seeing posts about staying away from armed protests. Why would anyone announce they're going to a protest armed? kind of indicating that there's going to be an armed protest.
But yeah, they've been talking about it for a while now.
Yeah, for real. But he's like, let's be low key about it, though.
It's my intentions to Capitol B in Washington, D.C. the 17th. Like, so there's going to be an armed protest the 17th through the 21st in D.C.
Keep it low key, guys.
Don't talk about it. I'll be there.
And see, that's why when
wink.
That's why when I say the word infiltration, when I said that word earlier, it doesn't even feel like infiltration. Honestly, I feel kind of like I'm a fraud and a hack for even using that word. But it's literally this easy to figure out what the fuck is actually going on in these people's brains, and I just want people to know that because they're not good at their national security, their OPSEC, their operational security. They're not good at this.
Well, bless their stupidity too, because they're not good at it because they think that they're within their legal rights to do these things. Mm-hmm. So they're like, no,
and this has been a slow burn.
This
has been going on for a long time. You know, growing up in Texas, I heard a lot of people talking the sedition talk for a long time.
Yeah, it's a pretty common thing.
It's just happening now, and you know, this podcast better come out tomorrow, because in a week shit's gonna be different.
Yeah, we might have to reconvene in a week to figure out what's going on. And so now that we've kind of covered what's going on and some of these like tactics, I want to bring us kind of back to the more broad scope of things. For instance, here in a moment we're going to be talking about the arrests and the people who were arrested. But before we get to that, I kind of want to talk to you guys about impeachment or the 25th Amendment and what your thoughts on it. I want to start with Shawn. What do you think about all this stuff going on?
Wait. What my thought is on what?
The impeachment of Donald Trump, or Pence using like the 25th Amendment to get him out of office.
What impeach?
Impeach
that
him.
That little slap on the wrist thing they called an impeachment?
Well, no, the new impeachment that they're thinking of filing. Yeah, for what was it called? I know I've used the word a lot tonight, but I think it was fomenting an insurrection.
Yeah.
It was insurrection.
Yeah, that's what they charged
possibly
him with.
Sedition.
Yeah.
It should be sedition.
It should be sedition.
If there were any laws in America, then he would have already been hung.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so I don't know. What do you think about the possibility of either of those?
You know, I was thinking about this the other day, and I kind of brought it up amongst the group, and I was like, I'm surprised he hasn't gotten impeached already, and I was reminded that he has.
Did.
He was, yeah.
But it was like a bullshit impeachment and stuff. And
he blocked all the witnesses.
I guess what I was comparing to before is I was like, you know, before this we impeached Clinton for lying about getting a blowjob.
Right.
And we got the fucking nation went,
and we got
motherfucker. You
Radical
lied
Puritanism at work again.
Yeah, right.
Like all this fucking shit went down.
Not the blowjobs.
We can't trust a president that's gonna lie about a simple blowjob from his mistress, and that. But then we get to Trump day and age, and we're like, and no. I'm like, where's the action? Where's the like? Last thing was a blowjob. This supersedes a blowjob. Like, we hope that we hear about Trump getting blowjobs on the side, and we can kind of make fun of it a little bit.
It was a clown show.
Yeah,
it's like what the fuck.
Well, and he's got Roger Stone. He learned from like Cohen. I can't remember his fucking name at the moment.
Mikey Cohen.
Mikey Cohen, yeah, or not Cohen. Cohn, Cohn. And so he's learned how to be a really good like master manipulator and to kind of wriggle out of anything that people try to charge him with. And I truly believe that that's kind of how the impeachment process went. They were like, we need you to bring these witnesses forward, and he was like, you can't have them. And
it was a total political show because in the end, you know, he got impeached, but then they voted along party lines not to remove him from office.
Awesome. Yeah, and so I mean, I don't know.
No, and that's where I'm like, it's really just a shit show, and that's where, like, thinking through, I think quite a few people can agree, minus all the people that support Trump, is that like all this shit is just like it's kind of crazy and bullshit, and it's very, like you were saying, it's very hard to ignore. Where it's like, really, like that actually happened? The outcome of what we are seeing for the past entire presidency of Trump. Where just, I'm sitting here like, we're still being serious right now. You're not just saying jokes like when we joke around about a president that's doing a halfway decent job and we're like,
he's
kind of make fun of him a little bit. Like, no, this is actual real story. And
It's a cult-like following.
I don't like. It still brings me back to the like. It's a sad state right now of the nation that that this is actually happening.
Right.
And stuff.
We look like Bolivia or Venezuela, and I'm just waiting for the people to say that capitalism has never worked.
You will not hear that from Turning Points.
Well, what kind of bums me out a little bit is that like this, storm the Capitol, this other bullshit and stuff like that, that it was these people.
Right.
I've been for a while, I'm like, oh, a fucking revolution is going to happen because the president's not dead from somebody shooting him and stuff like that. So somebody's going to revolt. And I would assume at this point that it's going to be the side like I think we all are kind of on.
Yeah.
Not the fucking white supremacist, neo-Nazi bullshit and that. And I'm like, wait, we have supporters of this that are rioting.
Right.
The problem that we can all acknowledge very easily, this fucking shit show presidency and stuff like that, there's the supporters that are creating all the havoc, not the like the hippies or the whatever, the people are like, wait, we all agree this
it's not the millions of people that were filling the streets all summer long.
No, it's the other people.
Few thousand true radicals.
It's like, wow.
It's
like,
so sad.
Like, I mean, what the fuck?
I have to laugh because it's that sad. And like, so one thing I want to address before we move on is that I think impeachment is an interesting thing because it strips him of a lot of the power that he has. For instance, if we get him through the impeachment process, he doesn't get to run for office again. He doesn't get to have Secret Service details. He doesn't get, I think it's like $200,000 a year as like a signing bonus or whatever the fuck it is.
It's like your retirement.
Yeah, there's a retirement package.
Every president gets like 200. They just get their paycheck still.
Yeah, and so I hear people talking about how useless it would be
Wild.
because like impeaching him wouldn't take him out of like it would take a long time. So he's going to be out of office before we can successfully do so. And I'm just kind of wondering I mean, I have my thoughts on it, but what are your thoughts on like impeaching him and making him so he's ineligible for this kind of stuff, Sam?
I mean, best case scenario, right? Best case scenario, the guy gets impeached for fomenting insurrection. At a minimum, sedition would be kind of amazing because that would probably actually you'd start to look at jail time for the guy at that point. I think it's probably really hard to make a guy like Donald Trump actually go to jail. But man, best case scenario, he gets successfully impeached so that he doesn't just get to suck off of his being president for the rest of his life.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of an important statement to make too. You don't get presidential protections if you are a shit president.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'd love for the guy to never have a Secret
that'd
Service
be all of
detail
them.
for the rest of his life. You
Yeah,
know what I
for
mean?
sure.
That would be awesome. No, you don't get Secret Service detail. You're not a president. You're not a president anymore. That's what that means.
You were charged with insurrection.
You're not.
Sedition.
If you fucking punch the guy in the face on the street at that point,
that's on you, buddy.
that's
That's between
assault.
you and his security.
It's just assault. Yeah. It's not whatever punching the president is. It's clearly like.
It also keeps him from running again.
Yeah,
and
which
that's
is more
what
important.
I think so too, because I think
Guts him.
He'll be back in 2024.
Yeah, and that's for me the scariest thing is that like with him still in office, we're gonna have this cult following for the next 4 years, that's if he doesn't die, and he's got a lot of money potentially, so he's probably not gonna die of anything soon. But it's scary, especially because when we talk about like the revolution and being represented and stuff like that, it's oftentimes like I want people in these offices who represent our line of thought. And I think something to also address is like in 4 years, Trump will be something like he'll be in his late 80s or early 90s. We don't want people from that generation.
He's like 74.
Sorry. Yeah, he's going to be in his late 70s, early 80s rather. And like, why are we still having old people govern us?
No shit.
Like I looked at this year's election as eating a shit hot dog or eating a shit sandwich. The hot dog being slightly smaller amounts of food than the sandwich. It's not a good choice. why can't we pick between a delicious cheeseburger and a wonderful hot dog for fucking once? We always have these septuagenarians and octogenarians.
Fucking salad. Can I get a salad?
Can I get a salad, please?
Can I get a goddamn
Can I pick
salad?
between two really good candidates?
No, I get that salad was invented by poor people, but I like salad and I like poor people.
I feel good when I eat salad.
Well, speaking of poor people,
though.
like that's one of the major failures is that the poor folk, the working class, have been splintered so much that they can't even come together to tell all these political fucks how the world should be.
Something that I saw while I was doing...
Remind them who's actually fucking running the show.
Yeah, why are public servants, politicians, riding around in Escalades, and public servants, school teachers, have to ride the bus?
Yeah, and in like my preparing for this show, I was doing various research and trying to just get some notes going so that we could, run and do this. And I came across this article that was saying that the thing that disappointed some of his close people are saying the thing that disappointed him the most was that about this Capitol protest and this riot was that everybody looked poor. That was the thing that bothered him the most.
No, they spent so much money on those special clothes.
He doesn't want to be
like
associated
Camp
with that
Auschwitz.
low-class bullshit. And so when we think that Donald Trump is here for the people and stuff like that, we have to remember that he looks at even his own followers doing the thing he asked them to do as scum. He wishes that they were probably out there in three-piece suits looking very nice and very dapper because they looked too poor for him or something to that fucking effect. And that's what really bothers me is this disenfranchisement between our upper echelons, i.e., Congress, who's really old, and our presidential candidates, who are super old. There's this discrepancy that we're kind of... that some people, they don't see. And it's a really tough thing to put into their face and to change their mind about.
And we have been spending a lot of time shitting on the right wing, deservedly so, because they are a threat to American democracy.
A fucking toilet.
Like
if
you care at all about the American system of government that has been in place for the last however many 100 years,
200,
then you're pretty upset about these ass clowns breaking into the Capitol building and trying to stop, certification vote or whatever.
So that's actually a good little segue, nailed it this time, into some of these little fucking asshats because as we know, arrests have been ongoing since it's about a week now removed, 5 days or so. But arrests have been ongoing, and so a part of the show that I wanted to include was some of these idiots and talk about them.
Before we get to that, because I just wanted to finish that thought.
Yeah, please.
We have been shitting on the right wing. I will say that a lot of left wing has been very similar in that sense of just dividing and making things one way or the other. If you believe this, you're a that. If you think this, you're a that. And nobody's coming together under the banner of the working class right now.
Yeah, and that's what I see that's so sad about Trump's
turns out
following
a bunch of the
versus
working
Trump.
class are fucking Nazis, man.
Yeah, and
that's true.
It's
No
like
shit.
a little bit of sympathy there,
No
but
shit,
then you're like, oh, they're Nazis,
to,
though.
It's hard to want to fucking go and support whatever the fuck the guy I work next to at the carpentry job. I'm not going to go help. I want to hit him in the head with a hammer.
Right.
Like he showed me his swastika tattoo. That literally happened to me. I had a guy fucking at work once find out that my dad's family was Jewish, so he showed me his swastika tattoo.
Jesus.
Pretty cool.
So what do you do at that point? You're like, I don't need this job, or you're like, this guy doesn't need his job, or I'm going to beat this motherfucker's ass for being
So I told my boss.
Nazi.
I told my boss about it, and my boss was like, "Ah, yeah, Tommy, he's a man. He was in prison."
Oh, cool. That's a good reason.
Okay.
Sam, you should just forgive him.
Yeah.
And let him go. He's probably not going to do anything.
Oh, he was in prison, bro. He had to get the
No,
Nazi
it wasn't. That wasn't a
tattoo to
great.
survive.
That wasn't a great job. I mean, it paid well, but it wasn't a great job. I told my boss about it. He was like, kind of blew it off, and then it's not like the dude said anti-Semitic shit to me or anything like that, right? He never crossed that line. Yeah. I quit for other reasons because the other guy we worked with was such a douchebag. But it's like these guys are douchebags.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to find solidarity in the fact that we labor all day together. But it's impossible.
But when
So it's a
your
human
group
problem.
of people that you affiliate with want to literally kill my ethnic group or cultural group or whatever group, where we can't get along, and it's wild. It's radical. I think they're white supremacists. But we're gonna jump into who some of these white supremacists may or may not
Let's talk
be.
about who these Nazis is.
So I'm sure you guys saw
Paging
the.
Aldo Rain.
I'm sure you guys saw or heard about the QAnon shaman.
The dude with the Aryan Nation tattoo on his stomach with a dick pointed to it, tattooed on his body, wearing a Viking hat.
Yeah, first thing I want to note about that is everybody's been posting these images about how he's Antifa, and they caught him in photos at these Antifa rallies and stuff like that. Well, I did a little bit more research, which really wasn't, it was subliminal research. Like, I didn't have to do much. And found out that, yeah, he was at these BLM protests, guys. And I want to tell you, he was there. He was there with those Antifas. But he was a counter-protester. You can see photos of him holding up signs that say, God chooses freedom, red, white, and blue bullshit. And, he's a Trump supporter. So that's the first thing I want to note about the fucking weird horn dude, the QAnon shaman. The second thing I want to note is that his name is Jacob Anthony Chansley, but he calls himself Jake Angeli. I don't know why, but it might be because of our next little factoid about him. Because he's an actor / voice actor, and what we have to say about that is he's a failed actor and voice actor. So Jake Angeli seems like it's kind of a stage name. And again, he's like the QAnon shaman, and apparently he does psychedelics in the desert. He lives in Arizona, from what I understand. Recently arrested, and I'm not gonna pretend to know his ideology, but it sounds like he does psychedelics in the desert, and he communes with the great spirit of Q, who is QAnon or whatever. I don't know. But I did see this really funny video of this Native American woman who is looking at his attire. And in the interview that she's watching is an interview with him. And he's saying something about how his hide is of a coyote and his horns are made of buffalo. And the coyote represents this because he's a trickster. He's coming and he's stealing all this stuff and he's a trickster.
I probably saw that dude on Deadline.
Yeah, and the Navajo did the thing. And she quickly shut that shit down and was like, no, it wasn't the Navajo. It was this ethnic group of people that believed that. They didn't wear coyote skins. And the culmination of her video was basically like, this dude just cursed himself for wearing this stuff and taking this spirit into himself. And so I thought that was a really interesting factoid about the QAnon shaman. Also, before he was arrested, there was a gay porn made about him. Yeah, so it was less than 24 hours somebody made a gay porn.
He's also been in jail for 4 days, and I just heard this on my way here, that he hasn't eaten in 4 days. He's on a hunger strike because they won't feed him organic food in jail.
Interesting kind of Trump supporter.
I mean, that's not that far from some of the, what would have been considered far left hippies that I've run around with in my time.
And that's where this weird conspiracy theory hippie world comes colliding into like the right wing Nazi terrorism bullshit, like the Flat Earth Manifesto. I think it's all good to like explore new ideas and to kind of open your mind up to things that maybe you didn't think about before. But the Flat Earth Manifesto, it literally, you open the first page and it's like, the earth is flat. Second page, the Jews didn't actually die in the Holocaust. And so it's like I get wanting to challenge authority and challenge what you believe and questioning everything and perhaps, getting into these different niche kind of understandings of things.
Page 1 wasn't enough, page 2 will get you.
Yeah, but when you read deeper into these things other than just the memes and some of these videos that people watch, like some of this stuff is really caustic and terrible shit.
Sure.
So, did you have a thought, Sam? I was going to say, next on our list of people who were arrested was Adam Johnson, and he stole the podium of the Speaker of the House.
Looking like Trey Anastasio up in there.
Yeah. It's pretty interesting. I also like that these people were walking around filming and photographing everything. Never thought once that it'd get them in trouble.
No, because they thought that they were doing what they were being told to do by the person in power.
Who's the person in power again?
Trump.
Oh.
He's still technically president until the 20th.
Weird.
And they're doing his bidding, and they thought that they had all the cops and all the army on their side, and they might.
They might, for now. Because nobody knows. There is a lot of sacredness in people swearing their oath to the people, so we'll kind of see how that plays out in the next couple of weeks. But next on our list of people who were arrested for being stupid is Richard Barnett, he's the guy who took photographs of him, had photographs taken of him with his feet up on Nancy Pelosi's desk. And he was arrested for, again, basically trespassing. We'll see how the rest of that goes. Eric Gavalek Munchell, was arrested after photos of him in military photos of him in military style clothing showed him holding zip ties in the chamber where the lawmakers had previously been, and he was armed. And I might get this wrong between him and the next person, but I think Eric was armed with multiple sidearms. And the other person we're about to talk about was not armed, but I could have that detail mixed between the two.
Are we gonna talk about the dude that tasered himself in the balls and had a heart attack and died?
We won't, because that's actually not a real story, unfortunately.
Damn it!
Yeah. But Cleveland Grover Meredith Jr. is the next person on our list, and
Cleveland.
First of all, holy fuck, is that a name, guys?
It's a big name.
It's a big name. You gotta figure that dude does something important. No, he was arrested for threatening the life of Nancy Pelosi, saying at the riot, quote, "A bullet in her, Pelosi's, noggin will happen on live TV." Our next little idiot asshole is Derek Evans, and he is a West Virginia lawmaker, newly elected to the West Virginia House of Delegates. He was charged with illegal entry, and he resigned. So that's good. And obviously, there's tons more people that I'm not including. These are just some of the highlights that I took in my note-taking. And, the investigations are ongoing. But these are some of those Capitol Hill idiots that you saw storming. Or not Capitol Hill, but some of those idiots you saw storming around the...
Insurrectionists?
Insurrectionists might be a good term for them, considering all the...
I mean, I'm pretty sure that was the first time ever that a Confederate battle flag was paraded through the Capitol building. I could be wrong.
They also hung up iron crosses.
Jesus.
Yeah, which are, if you listening at home don't know, white supremacy bullshit again.
Yeah, that's from the actual World War II Nazis.
Right.
Yeah, so...
And what's going on now is not that dissimilar to what was going on in 1938 in Germany.
It really isn't.
Really not.
So we're going to kind of keep the gears turning. We got a couple more segments we're going to get into. And the first one we're going to get into is Trump trying to pardon himself. So several sources close to the president are asking around about his ability to pardon himself. And I'm going to read from the New York Times here really quick. Quote, President Trump has suggested to aides he wants to pardon himself in the final days of his presidency. According to two people with knowledge of the discussions, a move that would mark one of the most extraordinary and untested uses of presidential power in American history. In several conversations since Election Day, Mr. Trump has told advisors that he is considering giving himself a pardon and, in other instances, asked whether he should and what the effect would be on him legally and politically, according to the two people.
He's trying to save his ass.
It was not clear whether he had broached the topic since he had incited his supporters on Wednesday to march on the Capitol, where some stormed the building in a mob attack. Mr. Trump has shown signs that his level of interest in pardoning himself goes beyond idle musings. He has long maintained that he has the power to pardon himself, and his polling of aides' views is typically a sign that he is preparing to follow through on his aims. He has also become increasingly convinced that his perceived enemies will use the levers of law enforcement to target him after he leaves the office.
And this whole presidency has been unprecedented.
Mm-hmm. Unprecedented, if you will. Yeah, so what do you guys think about Trump trying to pardon himself? Pretty cool and good, right? Couldn't go bad.
I think he's an idiot if he does. I think that there's no way that the Supreme Court is going to uphold that, because the president cannot be above the Constitution.
But he's proven over and over again that he can.
It's kind of a
fair enough.
This whole storming of the Capitol building just shows that the laws don't really mean much, and that whole presidency, the rules don't really mean much. What you would think is supposed to happen and how somebody should act doesn't matter.
Well, and again, he hasn't even denounced what's going on.
And he didn't denounce any of the shit that's happened under his watch the whole time. So why would you expect any different?
Yeah, definitely. And it just really goes to show like what the intentions are here, and I think like how like a guilty man doesn't do, or an innocent man doesn't do stuff like this. I think he's got 30, 50 years worth of legal processes.
Person doesn't do any of the shit he does.
Yeah, and
let alone guilt or innocence, not aside.
Yeah, and I mean he's got maybe 50 years of lawsuits coming at him after he gets out of office, and I mean I don't know how it's shaked out, but Trump U, last I checked, Trump University, the thing that was created in like the early 2000s. People, last time I checked, were still waiting to get payments from that multi-level marketing scheme. And so, like, I don't know what he's going to do. And what is it now? 9 days between the inauguration of
Well, we know
Joe
something's
Biden.
happened on the 17th.
Yeah, but we know something's happening between the 17th and the 21st, arguably between now and then, because today is the 11th. But we'll kind of see how that goes. But the next little thing I want to cover is just how the insurrection kind of stands now. And, as of today, the 11th, protests are being planned for all 50 state capitals as well as in the capital, D.C. And this is an unsettling idea considering protests for the president-elect's inauguration are already being planned. It seems that there's more threats on the horizon.
Well, I thought the inauguration was going to be all online.
I don't know.
I heard Biden was going to do a Zoom inauguration.
Yeah, and the reason I think the threat of insurrection is still kind of looming is because I heard some like history buffs and maybe historians couldn't verify that. But they were saying that a failed coup attempt is usually followed by a successful coup attempt. And so, like, I don't want to be the kind of I don't want to be an alarmist, but I think that as Matt was saying earlier, this is kind of this is step one. This is them opening the door, and this is them starting the book, if you will, first chapter.
Right, they just showed a bunch of people that you can walk up in the Capitol building, nothing much is going to happen to you, and you're not going to meet any resistance.
Mm-hmm. Not for days or weeks later, at
right.
least. Yeah. And so, what do we guys think? Do you guys have any predictions for the inauguration? What are we kind of feeling as we end this episode? Sam, how do you feel about this?
Not confident.
Good answer, I think.
Not confident. I am, I think it goes without saying, deeply disturbed by the last, we'll just say like 30 years of American politics anyway. Mm-hmm. But particularly the last 4. And
wild ride, yeah.
And just embarrassed. To be honest,
yeah.
I feel embarrassed.
I traveled to Ecuador after Trump was elected, and they were like, "How do you feel that he's your president?" And I was like, "Not fucking good." Like, I feel very bad to even say I'm an American. And actually, while I was down there, if people asked, I tried to say I was Canadian. I was hanging out with a bunch of Canadians. They were like, "It's cool. When we get drunk and get real rowdy, we just say that we're Americans," and people go for it. And I was like, "You fucking assholes." That's why you guys keep your reputation as nice people.
It's kind of crazy because I have talked to people that have been in other places in the world within the past 4 years, and you'd kind of be surprised how much pro-Trump sentiment there is worldwide. Yeah. It's strange.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's, again, kind of shocking and
because
scary.
He's a fucking dick.
And a cult leader. He's like Jair Bolsonaro, or fucking, what's the UK's prime minister? Well, I'm just saying that these people are basically just other Trumps that are, this sentiment is not something that's strictly American, this like rebellious spirit, we have to go against the evil conspiracy of insert thing here. This is not something that's purely American, and I think that's kind of the highlight that I want to make towards that idea.
I'm gonna be super disappointed if Revelations turns out to be right.
I know, and we're all like, "Fuck, sorry, Jesus."
Revelations did predict that there would be a populist politician that would bring people into
the sound. What would it use? The sound of Trump Pence.
Yeah, the sound of Trump Pence will
the seventh Trump Pence
herald the end.
Exactly. And then 3.5 years, it's gonna be all good. And then the next 3.5 years is when all the shit goes down.
Wow,
so,
this kind of sounds...
If there's a Middle Eastern war that starts, we're really at the end. We've already had the plague. There's going to be some other pestilences.
It's going to be an exciting new, coup year.
Ouch.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting year. And like, again, we don't know where this is going, but it's been awesome getting back together with you guys and doing a special like this. So I want to say
thanks
thank you
for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Thank you guys for being here as usual, Sam and Shawn. And really quickly, Matt, where can people like hear about you and what you're doing online?
Yeah, follow me on Instagram at MeanMattMusic, or go to my website, MatthewWallaceMusic.com. Got a new album that we recorded a couple of weeks ago, and we're mixing and mastering and getting it ready to release this spring. Come check it out.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I actually, before we started this,
Shawn
you
over
guys
here,
showed me
Mr. Producer,
you
played the bass for her. It's hot fire.
Yeah, and again, before we started this episode tonight, you guys showed me 2 of your songs, I do believe, and they were pretty kick-ass, guys. So you listening, you guys should definitely go check out Matt. Obviously, I'm at YouTube, and I have a Facebook, but I don't think anybody cares about that. And yeah, it's been fun. It's been a wild start to the new year, and maybe we'll do more of these news episodes.
You mean 1,000-year-old calendar flipping numbers didn't change the way things were going?
No, it turns out that a human generated numerical order does not change when that big number changes year to year. Like that, it doesn't mean anything.
Good
really.
to know.
Yeah. So when people are like, new slate, new year, new me, bullshit, hold them accountable.
You're such a fucking cynic, bro.
Yeah, right. Well, anyway, thank you guys at home for listening. This has been, honestly, just again a blast. I'm Loren O'Brien. It's been Black Sheep Bad Apples, and we'll see you guys next time.
Peace.